Welcome back, Masters and Princesses, to another episode of Made News Network. Today it's Destiny and SJ, and we are joined once again by the lovely Nitt Picc, YouTube reactor, Patreon queen. And we're just going to keep following up on her journey through Band Maid, new discoveries she's made, interactions with the fans, and just continue to follow her as she goes through the pigeonhole. Thank you so much for being here today.
I'm excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me again.
Oh, definitely. Anytime.
Good morning. All right, we'll jump right into it. So I think it was Destiny brought you to our attention first. You did the review or you did a reaction to Domination, and you were just so vibrant and effervescent. We're like, we really need to talk to her. And we hit you up really early and you're like, no, not yet. So finally last March, like 3 months ago in March, you were like, okay, fine, we'll do it. You felt confident enough. You had seen a few songs and you're like, okay, let's do this. So with that in mind, you've continued to do Band Maid reactions, and you've had some really, we're crazy. So I know that you get run over with comments and suggestions and fan interactions. How has that been?
Honestly, it's been like the most awesome part of this whole process because again, I remember like it actually kind of backtracking a little bit. When you guys had approached me for this interview today, I was like, how long has it been since I've done my first reaction? And it was my first reaction on YouTube that I posted. And I went back and watched my own reaction and I was like, yeah, I remember why I like this. And the immediate love and just outpour of just like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad you've discovered Band Maid. And like just remembering the comment of for the first time being called like a princess and being accepted into the community. We're still like, I'm still going, and it's crazy that it was only in March that we had done the first interview.
Yeah.
And like here we are in June, and it's like the community is still sweet. They're very kind, and what I love is they're always willing to talk to me and tell me more, especially if I like to continue the conversation about music. And I love that I always learn more by the time I learn more by watching the new reaction, the new song, but I always learn more from the audience. And that's like the best part, just constantly learning from them while I get to show them what I am listening to and what I hear. And hopefully they take something from that. So it's been wonderful. It's been absolutely great.
There you go, guys. Keep it up.
Yes, please.
So you started YouTube and it was very recent, like you said. And when was it that you started your Patreon? When did you start doing that?
That's a good question. Oh my God.
It was recently. So you're starting on your Patreon. From what I've noticed, that's been going really well. How do you decide what content goes on there versus YouTube? Is there, I don't know, something you just decide, well, this would be better for this audience or this would be better for the YouTube audience? How do you decide that?
Well, okay, with that, so Patreon is, I will be honest, Patreon has been the most awkward part of doing YouTube. It was like, honestly, the way I learned how to navigate and what to do on Patreon is from a lot of like helpful coaching from friends who do it. So for instance, like I asked drumroll Tony, like, what do you do? How do you handle this? Because it just seems like crazy to sit here and be like, hey, I know stuff about music and I'm interested in seeing what you guys have to say. And like, he was so nice to walk me through the process and all this. And I think I started it maybe February or March. I can't remember, but he just told me, he's like, honestly, you just have to jump in and just accept what people on your Patreon want. And you can also choose, and you have to ask if that is a content you want to put on YouTube or content you want to put on Patreon, because obviously, like, I know you subscribe to my Patreon, so you know that in Patreon, I actually will sit through a performance the whole way through before I actually start breaking it down and go back. And obviously that's not, it's frowned upon on YouTube because copyright. So, and personally, that the way I choose is just, I follow what the community wants and I give them that. And if there is something that I'm like, well, would this go better on YouTube or would it go better on here? And a lot of the times the communities who tells me like, hey, this is blocked on YouTube, so you might want to do it here, or this is just like more than likely it will not go well on YouTube, you might as well do it here. So it is like a lot. I've noticed I've gotten a lot of either smaller groups that a lot of people don't know about, or videos that are typically very blocked. And I've also experienced things where, like, for instance, Otto or gets partially blocked all the time. So I always, just in case, for people who want to just see it, it's free. You can just go watch it. Or like Electric Callboy, that was completely blocked. But yeah, I just follow what everyone tells me and just kind of go from there.
Oh, that makes sense. It's good to know how to switch between the two and cater to both audiences, because some people might not want to use Patreon. So, although as a subscriber to your Patreon, I highly suggest it. So with Patreon, I think you and I had a discussion, and I believe it came onto your Patreon first, and then you did another disclaimer on YouTube later about, in regards to Band Maid and copyrighted, ripped content, and that you want to be very respectful to the band, and you don't want to take that content that other people have ripped and put out there and react to it because you don't feel like it's morally proper to you. Is that something you would use Patreon for content that that has to be paid for, or that you have to watch that way and place it on there? Is that something that you'd be doing?
So the way I kind of figured out, or I think it would be okay. And like, here's my disclaimer for what I'm about to say. So it is perfectly fine for people not to agree. But this is kind of how I see it. So the reason why it feels wrong to do something that's like off of a DVD that somebody purchased. Because, by the way, when I went down this pigeonhole, I noticed that I was like, oh, these, like, their stuff it's not horribly expensive, but if you find, like, there's a lot of collectors stuff. And with the amount, the amount of money that it costs to purchase those things, it's like, well, if it costs that much, it probably should have been purchased from the get-go. And yeah, like, I'm not saying I was a teenager once. I totally had like LimeWire and Napster back in the day and did file sharing when I was younger. And then the moral kicked in when I became a musician and realized, oh, well, yeah, I can just perform this for free. And my mentors, teachers, professors were like, but this is your job. You eventually have to be paid for being a musician. Just because it's art doesn't mean it doesn't need to be paid for. You need to be paid. And that was the hardest lesson for me to learn. Now that I'm a musician and reacting to other musicians' content with Band Maid, it was like, when I found out that I had reacted to something that was ripped off of a DVD, I was like, oh no, oh, that feels wrong. And I'm glad you had brought that to my attention, because it immediately made me remember, like, just because a band has, like, let's say even just millions of dollars of revenue or billions or whatever, it doesn't mean that they're not deserving of that money that they receive from concerts, product sales. Somebody has to make those things. Somebody else, it's not just them. like their team is also getting paid. People are working for them to make these things that come to us as consumers, right? So you can't just think about the band, you also have to think about people that are working with them, and that's huge. So I felt the way to kind of go about this was, if it's paid for, I am okay with doing it on Patreon. It feels safer, but the only way I feel fine doing it on Patreon is doing it in my YouTube format, because, well, because I've gotten so many negative comments on other videos about, well, why do you have to pause all the time? Why can't you just watch it all the way through? And I'm like, okay, that's why the link to the videos in the description.
That's a personal preference too, because you do have some followers like me that like that. You break things down, and
yeah. And like, I feel like at that point, breaking it, also pausing, I believe, is one of those things, like, if you really want to watch the whole thing, go find the original video in some capacity. So that's where, like, currently I'm in this process of like trying to find certain DVDs for Band Maid. I have Band Maid Prime now, which I have not dug through it yet, but I'm dying to. So, because like, I'm willing to do Band Maid Prime reactions, but I refuse to do it in a full watch through. It has to be done in segments, because I want people to see that by their own purchase. And I think a lot of people seem to have that account, but I feel like doing the segmented version gives people who don't have that Band Maid Prime account an opportunity to kind of see what they're missing, and then go, okay, well, I need to go see this myself. So hopefully it boosts their
smart
Prime. Yeah. So that's kind of how I see it. But yeah, that's how I'm going about it.
Yeah, that's a thorny issue, and it has been. The audio stuff, people don't get too spun up over, because the audio stuff is out there. It's the video stuff. Like, the first time they ever released any live footage was, there's 3 songs. It's the Daydreaming limited edition single. There's only 3,500 of those. On the open market, they're usually it fluctuates, but it's usually $200 to $350 just for that single. Right. So people get protective of that, especially when you have to go to like Billy to find this stuff. You're out of pocket. If you can't find it anywhere but there, it's not supposed to be up. So especially when it comes to reactors, people are kind of like, don't do that. And speaking as a collector, yeah, we pay stupid amounts for stuff, especially as we get closer to complete. I'm actually done. I can actually say I have everything, but there's some stuff out there that gets stupid. The Love Passion Matador 3-song EP, which they did made in Japan, and then they did a 3-song EP. That usually runs in the $800 range.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And that's just 3 songs. There's, in fact, the picture behind me I'm using as my background is from that era. When they come up, because there's only 2,000 of those. So when they change hands, it's people who have been waiting on it for a while. And there's a few other things that are really, really rare that I almost paid 110,000 yen for the YOLO 12-inch vinyl. And I was never happier to lose an auction in my life, because I got one much cheaper later on. At the time, that equated to about $800.
Oh, yeah. It's one of those things, like, I did get a little, like, it's the comments on that YouTube video that I put up on on YouTube. Hello, I'm repeating myself. I am literally have my coffee right here. Yeah, teacher brain. Yeah. But I did get a lot of, like, it's not mixed, but it felt like there was a good half and half that everyone's like, well, because, okay, I get it. Like, I'm sure, back in the day, you would get a CD from a friend, and that's how you listen to a new group. And then sometimes you'd put it on your computer, and then you'd give the CD back. And it's like, oh, there's this process of transferring. And this is like, honestly, that's how all these copyright things began. It started from that step. And so there's nothing wrong with introducing somebody to a new group that you really like by lending them something. And then at that point, you start to garner, you know, an audience by starting to support that group. Because it's kind of how, like, any band that I've started to enjoy, it gets to the point where I'm like, okay, well, now I kind of want to buy this. So we kind of have to you have to think of it that way. And I'm not saying that anyone else who downloads stuff or whatever is a horrible person. That's never what I'm saying. It's just everyone to each their own. It's just where I stand as a musician is I need to support fellow musicians.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
I've
that's
got
why
both
I
of you
wanted to
beat by
touch
like
on
20
that.
years. So the original stealing music was the boombox with a double cassette deck where you put your cassette on one side and you recorded it to the other tape deck. So look, and Metallica is the first to tell you that they blew up through tape trading.
Yeah.
There is a reason to it, but there is also a line where you need to support them financially, otherwise they don't exist. So it's like I said, it's a thorny subject.
Right. And that's
And
why
I
we
get
wanted
it.
to touch on that, because you've made disclaimers on both Patreon and YouTube. So I thought this would be another area format for you to put that out there for fans.
Thanks. Yeah.
You're welcome.
All right. So I looked at your channel. Unless something's miscategorized, you have 21 Band Maid reactions so far.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty good variety, actually. There's a few songs that you're absolutely missing. You have to actually, there's many you're missing. You'll get there when you get there. Everybody wants you to see everything. That said, though, has your appreciation for the band as a whole and individual musicianship increased as you go through these reactions?
So I was actually thinking about this while I was at the gym the other day, because I have a Band Maid playlist that I have I created to listen to what I already have listened to. So it's kind of sad. I have a Band Maid playlist of 21 songs. I haven't put Dice and Hate back on there because I kind of want to see them separately from Lollapalooza. But anyway, the appreciation, like, there's a massive amount of appreciation every time I see, like, especially live performance. Just the thing about them is that, well, not only that, I just did my reaction to Konami or Orenji's Konami documentary, and just watching that documentary gave me a million times more perspective on how composition is done within their band. And that blew me away. I knew everyone's like, oh yeah, Konami does a lot of the writing. And I was like, how? And now I know. And every single one of those members of that band brings like 1000% of all they have in every performance, and the way they approach their performance, because there's so much stage presence, there's so much musicianship happening on the stage, like the way they interact with their audience, and they really appreciate their audience. It's like there's so much about them to love that they're just so well-rounded. Like, it's so hard not to be like, these are, because it's funny, because I've been introducing Band Maid to a couple of my friends and they were like, wow, they're like really good. And I go, yeah, like, and they're all like musicians in some form or fashion, like talking about Konami playing piano, and I had no idea until what capacity, but they all have a musical background, and it's not common all the time for people to have a musical background. Sometimes they just pick up the instrument. But yeah, my appreciation for their ability and musicianship has grown massively, just because I feel like I keep learning more every single time. Like, right when I think I know something, I don't, and then I learn more. So that's, yeah, it's grown a lot. And I'm not even close to feeling like I know anything.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Have you done any transposing of their music to the flute yet?
Okay. So I feel so bad because Alex Cello,
Mhm.
me and him were supposed to do a project, and he finished the project, and I'm supposed to do my part, and I still haven't completely done it, but I started transcribing. Ironically, daydreaming because
Mm.
I absolutely love that song. Like, it speaks to me, and I was like, this would transfer really well on flute just because it's so lyrical. And yeah, I have started, it's coming, and there are a few things that I might do snippets of, but there are a few songs that I'm trying to transcribe Konami's guitar solo and try and do it all on flute. And so we're working on those small little projects.
Well, I already talked with you about loaning you some of my collection for your own use and study. So this little guy right up there, the score is coming to you. We are going to send that to you so you can go through that. So
Oh my gosh.
that'll help.
That'll be a million times helpful. Because yeah, like, hooray for being able to read sheet music.
That was the cutest thing I've ever heard. So with your appreciation with the band, you've done a lot of their newer stuff, and you've also done a lot of their older stuff in between. You've basically covered a lot of their different time spans, basically. Anything surprise you? Do you have an opinion about their style changes as they've gone through their career? Anything made a big impression on you? How do you feel about their discography so far?
So I think the funniest thing so far that I've noticed is, like, and I feel so validated when the community is like, oh, you figured it out. So again, thanks to the community. You guys are awesome. But the funniest thing is, like, the earlier stuff when they were under a different management, where they weren't allowed, I guess I say allowed because I'm not 100% sure, to write their own, I guess, music and lyrics and stuff. Like, I think it was funny. I forgot the name of the song, but it was pretty racy. And I remember
Don't Let Me Down.
Yeah. Like,
that was a good reaction.
Yeah, like, I'm not opposed to, like, songs with, like, suggestive lyrics. That's not, trust me, despite my teacher status and the way I go about my videos, I'm actually quite the sailor. But it's like listening to that and then kind of like realizing, like, I was like, this has to be something in their early works, because it doesn't seem like their kind of lyrics. And then watching how the band evolved, not only like management wise, but obviously when they had compositional freedom, it seems like the band was already hard rock, but it got heavier. And I don't know if anyone else feels this way, but the way their tone quality. So what I mean by is, like, how they play, how the instruments sound, the depth of sound changed. And it could also be because they again, documentary that I just saw, learning Konami going from her original company that she was sponsored with her guitar to PRS. And I'm wondering if, like, there's something about them that sounds darker, but not in a bad way. It's like heavy, fuller sound, and they just come at you with a wall of sound. But what's so funny is I feel like right when I think, oh yeah, they're just a hard rock band, it's like, no, they're not. They do almost a little bit of everything. And I'm always thrown for a loop every single time. And my favorite thing is when I listen to one thing and I'm like, I wonder if they do this. And there's always a comment of, have you checked this song out? So it's endless. So I do notice, like, a difference from their beginnings. But now when like found their creative freedom or were allowed their creative freedom, that's like a blossom effect into just explosion of just well, to me, it's like the corner brownie. It's the best part.
So Band Maid is like a corner brownie.
I'm the freak who likes the crunchy part of the brownie.
Hey, me too. It's okay. It
So
kind of
just-
reminds me,
Oh, go ahead.
sorry, SJ. Just talking about, you're like, can they do this? Can they do that? Your reaction to influencer, where you're like, I messed up. I lied. Because like he starts rapping and you're like, oh, this is rap.
Yep.
Oh, an influencer, yeah.
Yes.
That was priceless. That was great.
So just having said what you just said, have you come across any, if you've done 21, you've got about 100 more to go. Have you come across a song where you felt it was a little much? Like Konami, there's so much going in her head, she can't get it all out. And sometimes there's just a lot.
No.
Okay.
I don't know. Your reaction to Black Hole, you were like, what did I just listen to?
Well, but like, that's what I love about, I guess, because I've said this 1,000 times on my Discord, because I get this a lot. It's funny that it's a comment I've gotten in real life from anyone I work with to any, like now that I'm on YouTube, that either I'm too excitable or I'm easily excitable. And it's true. I am a child constantly when it comes to music. Everything is just so exciting. And it's very rare that I dislike something. And so, because the way I see it, because again, Konami, musician and composer, okay? There is something so exciting and fun to see what's going on in someone else's head. And to me, it can't be too much, because I just want to hear her. And it's funny that I'm going to say this because that's the way I see it, but everyone says it too, is I want to see what she has to say. And that's the way she's putting it out there. She's making music, and that's how she's speaking. And it never feels too much, because to me, it's like if you tell someone to back it off or don't do as much, it's like telling someone to be like, you're too much, stop. And I don't ever want that for somebody. Like, music is supposed to be about expression. And if that's her expression in that moment, she should have that freedom, as everyone should. So no, I always, I'm like, yep, nope, I want more. I always want more.
She seems to me the type of person who could all by herself write something for an orchestra, because she wants to go in so many directions that she could kind of fulfill that through different instruments.
See, and I was actually thinking about this last night. I like, okay, when is the first going to happen?
Oh, you froze up. Repeat that.
Oh, sorry. I was like, when is the first Band Maid plus full orchestra going to happen? Because it can be done. It would be so well done. Because if Metallica did it, I forget, there's another band who did it, but if they did it, they can do it too, and it would sound incredible. And with Konami's like compositional style, it would it would fit so well. So I'm waiting. Slowly but surely. I'm sure it'll happen someday, but I'm waiting patiently.
I think the fans want a Band Maid rock opera, according to posts in the cafe.
Yes, it would make so much sense, like 100%.
So has anything surprised you or made an impression in regards to their composition?
The main things that surprise me. Okay. So this is kind of funny. Something I was thinking about the other day while I was walking at the gym and working out and stuff. Because I was listening to the playlist I had. The amount of things that you run into musically that is not very common. It is common in some bands, but I kind of think I keep referring to the documentary. I'm so sorry. It's
No.
learning so much at one night. I was like, so because Konami is trained, it immediately clicked in my head. I was like, well, no wonder there's so many time signature changes and the change in keys for, like, I forgot what the song was.
Cross.
Yes, that, what, like, when I first listened to it, because, like, you think of bands like Rush, right, where the people listen to that, and I don't know if people already know, like, not the masses know that there's a ton of time signature changes in some of these songs, but I think, like, was anyone in Rush classically trained? I don't know, but when you think about Band Maid and Konami, and it's just like there's so many time signature changes, the key changes, and then not only that, like where, like, I forgot the name. I think it's Cross, or maybe it's another one where Psyche had to change keys because that's a big leap. Like, when I was listening to that song, I was like, how is she doing that? Like, that's as a vocalist, that's hard. Like, you never do that in classical music because it's hard for an opera singer to do that, although they'll do it.
Right.
But
right.
It's just crazy. That's what's been so surprising. It's just the compositional style. Like, there's no like, they do not adhere to the mainstream norm. And that's honestly what keeps me coming back. I just, like, there's always going to be something different. But that's it. Like, musically, it's just so, like, because I guess it's because it's like pop music. It's simple in that sense, but there's so much complexity in this, what we would consider a more simpler style of music for the masses. So it just makes it more interesting to listen to.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You can hear it as
cross
complicated as you want to. That's what's cool about it.
Yes. I like that.
I remember asking you if you would do the cross comparison because that song has so much going on and changes back and forth that I thought you would find it really intriguing. And I love that you sat down and you're like, I got to pause for a minute. I have to see where they're at jumping.
Yes.
And then you came back. It was great.
Yeah.
So you play the flute, as everybody knows. But I hear you a lot, both on Patreon and YouTube, talking about your obsession with Misa and that you've never been that drawn to the bass line or to the bass part in a band before. And you say this a lot. I counted at least 4 where you mentioned something about, I've never been this drawn to bass in a band. That's not normal. So what is it? Why does it do that to you? Why does Misa do this to you?
It's every time I hear Misa, I always tell myself I picked the wrong clef. Because when you think of, like, let's talk about a band setting, flute and trumpet are typically like your main melody instruments. So in, like, Band Maid, if we use that idea, like, Psyche would be the flutist because she's always singing the melody. That would be me. And I'm used to hearing only high pitches. I'm the melody. I'm always the center of attention, yada, yada, yada. And, like, it's funny because there's a saying in music education when it comes to band that if you don't have your bass, so we're talking like tuba, euphonium, you don't have a band. It doesn't exist. And for years I remember going, well, you can't even hear them. Like, as a child, I realized, like, I was like, well, no one hears the tuba. And it's like, oh, no, everyone hears it because it's constantly going. um, I learned that later on in college. But it's funny because, yeah, my ear has never been drawn so much to bass until, like, because you hear bass line. I'm not trying to discredit any band right now, although I am, so I'm not going to name any bands. But it's just like you hear bass lines in regular bands, and it's like, oh, it's okay. They're playing the chord progression, and that's it, and that's fine. And occasionally you get a fill here and there. But Misa, there's just so much happening in the bass that my ear is so drawn to it, and like she's just so prominent. I've never had a moment where I'm like, oh, she's not just playing 1 4 5 1. She's going like 1 plus extra, 4 plus a million other notes, and then 5. And it's because, and that's also what's funny. It's like they're all playing together, but I'm like, okay, Konami, Misa, okay, Miku, Misa, okay, Saiki, just kidding, Misa. It's just so hard to take my ears out of that bass. And it's funny because I never thought I would be so drawn into a lower sound that I was so obsessed that it's not in my background now. It was in a couple of my videos, but I did pull out my bass. I was like, I just want to see if I can try learning this. Just because I was like, I've played violin and I know how to string bass works, so maybe it's time to explore the lower tessitura. Like, maybe I just need to get out of the soprano voices. Well, so I guess it's just because of how she plays. It's just she doesn't do your basic run-of-the-mill bass lines. She's so musical with it, and it doesn't interrupt anything. So yeah, I guess that's why I'm so drawn in. I would think that's why.
I'm learning warning right now on the bass, and the beginning up to where the lyrics. Oh, you haven't heard warning yet, have you?
Not yet.
Oh, so this is going to kind of be lost on you. But anyways, it's about 40 measures. It's 195 BPM, all quarter notes, and doesn't repeat. So that makes sense to you.
Yes. And that's what I mean. Like, there's nothing repeating. It's just
you
constant.
get the first 2 measures are the foundation, and then the rest of that, it changes until it cycles back around.
It's like, it's almost as if she's improvising the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
It's so,
Yeah, when I send that scorebook to you, I will include the CD that has only instrumentals of that whole album. Because when you listen to it without Psyche's vocals, there's so much hidden underneath there. I mean, for some reason, Giovanni instrumental is like my jam when I'm driving.
That's a legit prog song, like a Yes or a Rush. It is crazy.
See, I've heard so much. I've heard that you've mentioned that to me before, Destiny, and I was just like, Giovanni. It was like, I wonder why it's named that. And then everyone's been telling me you need to hear this song, and I'm like, okay, well, gotta find it.
Well, I'll get that to you definitely.
Okay.
All right, so we're actually going in a good direction here. Do you have a current? I think you already said this, but do you have a current favorite song?
Okay, so I was thinking about this because I have a really hard. I love that by the way, the audience, the collective audience has also said this. The fans, they're like, I don't know if it's like having a favorite all the time, but like having a favorite of the day. So I was like, I'm gonna narrow down things that like why I like these songs, and the 3, like I came up with 3 because I was like, I know I like everything right now, but I came up with 3, and I wanted to start with, I was like, I really liked Influencer, mainly because like the switch to that rap / patter type singing, and I was like, okay, that threw me off. And I was just like, I really like that song. And then I recently did, it was Moratorium.
Yes.
That one, just I think I remember talking about how like the inclusion of like every member's always included, obviously, because otherwise whatever, but it's just everyone seemed like they were doing something in like just artistically in their own right, and everyone has a moment to shine, and I'm just like, I love that. I loved that. So it's like, this would be a song that I would like someone to listen to. Definitely. Like, I was just like, you need to hear this. And then of course, Daydreaming. I can't, that song gets stuck in my head more often than any song that I listen to. Like, even when, like, for instance, the other day I was cleaning my house and then I just remember humming the melody and I was like, what am I singing? And I was like, I'm singing Daydreaming again for like the 40th time. Yeah, it's just, I don't know what it is, but it's just so gorgeous. And the other thing that I love about that song is just, there's the melody that Psyche's singing, but then there's the melody that Konami's playing. And it's just these two counter melodies that get to intertwine. It's so pretty. It's so beautiful. So yeah, if I had to have a number one for right now, I guess it would be Daydream.
There you go.
It's been a top 3 song from me from the moment that I heard it. Things move around, but it's always right there in the top 3. The trope in the fandom is my favorite Band Maid song, the one that's playing right now.
Yes. Except for me, where mine is always Wonderland, and mine does not change.
Yeah, Wonderland's really good too. I was like, Wonderland, Daydreaming. Ah.
Really quick, I wanted to ask this because I'm curious. You've said before Psyche's your favorite, and then you've said, well, maybe Misa's my favorite. Any change-ups going on there? How you doing with that?
See, I knew this was gonna come up. After watching the documentary on Konami, I was like, oh my gosh, me and her are like the random funny queens. And like just listening to how her personality was described and how she acts and everything, I was like, I understand her. I get it. Like, just being, because people always tell me, they're like, yeah, you're just kind of funny all the time. And I'm like, I'm not meaning to be funny. I just like, this is how I am. And they're like, but you're funny. And I go, oh, well, that's good. I guess I love to make people laugh. But, and the fact, like, I just was so taken by her documentary with how she's a classically trained musician, and she wanted to go to music school, but she didn't. She ended up studying economics and management. And I was sitting there and I was like, that's true. I could have just like not gone to music school and did something else, because you don't have to go to music school to be a musician. You can just be a musician. You just have, like, her training helps her with that. But then I was like, well, I decided to be a teacher, so that's a different thing. But I felt so connected with her, I guess, like on a musicianal level, that it just felt like I was talking to someone I went to school with, or like listening to, like, yeah, this is the life of somebody I know. But it's so difficult. I'm sure like every time I watch a documentary, it's gonna change.
Jeez, you're so impressionable.
I know. I'm just like what am I? I'm silly putty. I'm just constantly being molded, and then put me on the newspaper. I'll take it. Like, it's just, they're all so cool. Like, I wish I was cool as Psyche. Like, she just has this calm, cool demeanor. She's a model. I love it. And then, Misa, just like, I want to be that level of just, I'm not going to show any emotion, but I'm constantly smiling. So it's like I have smiling disease. And then Konami, I feel like I know her, and I cannot wait. And I haven't even seen Misa's documentary yet. I imagine look, they're all going to be my favorite at some point.
So I have not found too many other reactors who consecutively do Band Maid like you. You have a Band Maid Sunday, and that's like your whole premise with Band Maid right now, which is great. Is there a particular reason why you have continued and probably will continue to cover Band Maid?
So it's funny because I know a lot of people, or not a lot, but I've had in the beginning, I remember seeing a couple comments of like, you're just doing it for the views. And it's like, well, yeah, the views are good. But the thing about it is, again, the number one reason why I'm continuing is the community has been so kind. And everyone, like, it's crazy. Like, so for instance, with you, Destiny, like, you've been so kind to be like, hey, I will send this to you so you can watch this. And like, and we've been discussing like, me trying to get a capture card to try and see if we can react to some of these. And I don't even know how that's going to work. I have to figure that out. But like stuff like that, it's like I've had so many people reach out to me and go, hey, I have an extra copy of this. Would you like it? Would you do this? Or this is where you can buy this. This is where, and everyone's been so welcoming, helpful in this journey of learning about a new band. And not only that, a band that I actually enjoy, that I started to enjoy from the first minute I reacted and listened to them. That's the number one reason why. It's the community. The second reason why is because why stop with something that I am enjoying listening to? And here's the other thing. I'm enjoying it, and the people, my favorite comments that I see are, I'm so glad someone had this reaction to the song. I had the exact same reaction. It's fun to see someone experience it for the first time. And it's funny because as someone who was apprehensive about starting a reaction channel in the first place, because I thought it was crazy. But my friends were like, you're a musician, you know this kind of stuff, do it. And I didn't understand that, yeah, that's true. Like, I experienced this piece different than this. Like, this person's never heard it. So how are they going to feel? Are they going to have the same reaction I had? Or like for me, it's the fear of somebody not liking something. Cause I just I like a lot of things, but that is also why, because I feel like a lot of people are like, I want to experience this again for the first time. And if I can share that with this community that's been ever so sweet, why not? And I'm having a good time too. It's like, you guys are giving me an opportunity to discover something. And it's funny because it feels like I'm still in the shallow end. I haven't gotten into the deep end yet. And I think that's the only downside. Like, for instance, I've never actually pulled up the Band Maid YouTube channel and like looked at it. And I like looked at every single video at a list, and I was like, I've never heard of this song. I don't know what this one is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, there's going to be so much. And I can't click on them. Because I want to try and be as authentic as possible. Because, yeah, again, documentary. I'm only saying it because I did the reaction last night at midnight. And the music that I heard in that documentary, I was like, I've never heard this. Where's this song? I need to hear this. I immediately was drawn into one of these songs. I was like, I don't know what this song is, and you guys are gonna have to tell me. Because yeah, that's the only thing. It's hard to be patient when I'm like, I could just listen to it. It's fine. No, I have to wait.
That's hard. That must
It
be
is.
so torturous for you.
It's like dangling a carrot in front of me.
It's
Uh,
it's bad. It's hard to get caught up. You probably honestly, the rate you're going, you'll never get caught up because they're so prolific with the amount of music they release. It's ridiculous. The band's 10 years old and they have almost 130 original songs. Wild.
10 years old. Jeez.
Yep. 10 years.
So
Crazy.
we are going to wind this down. But first, Destiny, do you have a you should watch this next request for Nitt Picc?
Oh Lord, there's just so much. You've done a lot of my favorites, but I always throw things at you that aren't necessarily my favorites, but what I think you'll really enjoy. You're gonna have to come back to me. I'm gonna check up some stuff. You go.
I know the answer to this question. This is very simple. And this is probably a good Patreon one. And it's a double shot. You need to listen to About Us. And then immediately after, you need to listen to Memorable. And the reason for this is About Us was written during the pandemic, and it was a love letter to the fans, and you will appreciate the lyrics. I'll leave it at that.
It's
Memorable
beautiful.
is also a love letter to the fans after they returned to touring, and they were afraid no one would remember them, but they were impressed how much we actually remembered them. And it came out of the 2022 US tour because we went nuts for 2022. So it's a stupid airplane. Hold on.
I know you're like, airplane, don't you interrupt me.
So, but yeah, so one is a love letter to the fans that we're here for you. And the other one is thank you for remembering us. So if you did those back to back,
Yeah,
I expect tears.
I
Okay.
agree with him. You should definitely do that. That would be beautiful. Fans would love that. My suggestion would be, and I posted it on your Patreon, but I know you have such a list. The instrumental Don't Belong. It's another instrumental of theirs. And I know you really
Okay.
like their instrumentals. And it's not something that's ripped. You can find it on just, the official audio. You can find it and listen to it.
Okay.
And then, so you like video games, like
Love it.
all the rest of us
Oh,
nerds here
nice.
do. So Miku writes a lot of songs or some songs about playing shooter games. Hide and Seek, I recommend because it's about playing a shooter game and the lyrics just crack me up and it's just a fun song. So I think you'd really enjoy that.
Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, I remember you mentioning this and I was like,
Mhm.
yes.
Yes, yes,
They did a
Okay.
cover of a Genshin Impact song.
yes, yeah.
I've heard about this and a part of me, like, I was just like, I need to find that because I didn't know where to look for that or whatever.
What other song was it that she wrote about playing video games or shooter game? SJ.
That's a good question. You hit me with a trivia question I don't know an answer to.
Oh, it's not Hibana, right? Is that Hibana?
No, I mean, I guess lyrically it could kind of be video game related. Hibana just means spark. And it's talking about gunshot, But I'm not sure if it is or not.
Yeah, but anyway, hide and seek is really amusing. Before SJ takes us off here, I just want to say on behalf of Main News Network and the fans that we really appreciate how much you appreciate our favorite band or one of our favorite bands, my favorite band, whatever. And one of the things that I think catches a lot of us and caught me initially to reach out to you and get all this going was because you have a background in music and you understand composition and you can appreciate the absolute insanity that Konami's brain comes up with and put it into words that people can understand, which then they can appreciate a song more. Maybe they didn't like the song to begin with. And then you explain something like, oh, this is really interesting on a musical level. And they're like, you know what? I should give that song another chance.
Yeah.
So thank you. I
Yeah.
really, really appreciate it. It's great.
Your joy is genuine, it's infectious, and you bring your musical knowledge to it. So it's like, yeah, I'm with her. Yeah, you're one of my favorite reactors for sure. So thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I'm really bad at taking compliments, so thank you.
All right. Now that we've completely broken Nitt Picc, I will say that's it. I'm SJ. We've been here with Destiny. We've been interviewing Nitt Picc. This has been Made News Network. Thanks for watching, and we will catch you next time. See ya.
Bye.